Well, hello, I'm Chip Jones, and welcome back to Okarga Farms here in Northeast Oklahoma. And it's time to get ready for spring. You know, this time of year I stay so busy at work, it's hard to make time to be at home. But spring came a little earlier this year. We've been really going busy since the 1st of March, and here it is getting toward the end of April. And it's certainly time for me to get my own space ready for spring. You know, we always kind of wait till April 15th because that is our frost date. But this year we actually had our last frost on April 21st. So I'm kind of glad that I waited to do so much work at home. It makes it very difficult to kind of hold stuff aside because so many people are buying. But I have special guests coming in next week to visit us here in Oklahoma, and I want to get at least the spring porches up and going, because if you look out on the side of the porch, you can see that spring has already sprung here at the farm. Everything is in bloom. It's time to kind of get these containers going as well. We've already finished getting all the pollen washed off. We've cleaned up all of the cushions. So today I'm going to be putting together all of these containers and showing you what it looks like when we actually bring them to life. You know, you've seen the containers at Christmas time as we add greens and berries and things like that to them. And in the fall, we have things like pumpkins that we add to whatever we do in the spring that kind of adds that extra color. This is the time of the year that I like to plant them because this is where we love to come out and enjoy the porch. You know, just this morning we had a thunderstorm. It was great to open the windows and also open the French door here off the primary bedroom, and we actually get to sit and listen to the storm from the porch, look north as we see all the thunder and lightning and excitement. So it is a really fun place to be in a storm. But I do want to show you one thing before we get started, what the inspiration is going to be this year for the porch. And here it is. This is the mysterious blue hydrangea that we sell out at Sanders Nursery. And this has been such a big seller for us. It's been very hard to keep a few of them aside, but we're going to be adding these to our planters. And we've used these before in other customers' containers. I've never used them here. And it's amazing how much color they actually hold throughout the entire summer season. We will be planting them in April, and I'll be giving you updates as we go through. But you will be amazed once we get to like July and August just how much color they get. They sort of antique in time. They get a little more green, but they also weather very well with the heat and humidity. Of course, they'll be on the porch, which will be in the shade, and this is the north location here at the house. But they were so pretty. I wanted to try to enjoy them as long as I can this year. So again, we're going to be using them on the porch, putting some other plants together to help them sparkle. And that's what we're going to be doing on today's project. So I hope you'll stick around. All right, I'm ready to get started on getting these planters complete. I started with some of my favorite potting mix. Have that in. I've also added some slow release fertilizer so they are fluffed and ready to go. It's always nice to kind of get all of your components together to see what you need. These planters, I've done many different things, but this year is probably the most colorful that I've ever done. And once I saw these hydrangeas, I wanted to use them. I struggle with doing mop head hydrangeas in the landscape here in Oklahoma, so I thought the porch would be a perfect way to try it. I always like to start with my most dominant flower, and this year I'm going to do actually 2 hydrangea shrubs in the planter, so I'm going to start with those first. Again, this is the mysterious blue hydrangea, and wow, just look at those colors. Absolutely beautiful. We've had a lot of them that actually had turned pink at the nursery as they began to age. I got a little ambitious with the potting soil, so I'm going to take out a little bit to make room for the hydrangea. And since I'm doing 2 of them, I'm actually going to split and do one kind of on each side because I'm actually going to add a hosta in the middle of this container. Okay, so I went ahead and took out a little bit more of that potting soil that I overfilled, and I'm going to add this second hydrangea to the container. Of course, it has nice healthy roots already coming out, so I'm actually going to kind of separate those to get them ready to go into a new container so the roots will spread throughout. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is actually put in a hosta that actually went in this container last year. What I do, because it gets rather dry and harsh with the winter, I actually take my hostas out at the end of the season, pot them up, and I put them in the greenhouse so that I can overwinter them and keep them fairly protected. So I'm going to come in, and again, this has been in the container all winter, and the roots have already been growing really well. We'll remove the weed, but I want to get a lot of those roots loosened up before I put it in this container this year. And then what I'm going to do is actually place this hosta right in the center toward the front to kind of break that up mass of hydrangea up just a little bit. And just look how beautiful that's turned out. It kind of adds a second layer to the container. And what's going to happen with all the other plants is actually add more dimension and color, just so there's a lot more movement and it just doesn't turn into one blob of one type of plant. All right, the next plant I'm going to add is this foxtail fern. I love foxtail fern. It's so easy to take care of, loves the shade, and just look at that root system, how healthy that is. I like to use these in as many different places as I can. They can get really long and tall, but you can clip off the longer growth if you don't want that, but I actually love when it gets really big. And I'm just going to place this one here in the back just to add some fun dimension. And again, as it grows throughout the summer season, it'll kind of get big and it will actually kind of give a waterfall effect behind the back of the arrangement as the season goes. And then for some unique different color, I'm going to add this plectranthus, which is an annual here. It's also known as Swedish ivy. Again, another great plant to add dimension. Grows so well in the shade. Gets kind of a trailing habit, so it's a great thing to have as a spiller in your container. I'm going to place one on each side. Then I'm going to come around to this side and actually add the second one as I come around. And then for some more fun color, I'm going to add this creeping jenny or Lysimachia. This is a definite, if you see me do any more containers, you're probably always going to see some Lysimachia. I love the lime green. Again, it's easy. It grows well in the sun or shade for me. You have to keep it hydrated. It does not like to dry out, but just look at the pop of lime green it will add once we put it in this container. Again, another great spiller to add to your containers. So easy. And if you put it somewhere where it can actually root in, you can actually dig it up and spread this plant around to many different places. And because I love this creeping jenny so much, I'm actually going to add it to kind of like all four corners of the arrangement so that I can see that spilling out. Adding that bright lime green. You know, a lot of times when you have every plant that has just dark green foliage, it all blends together, but by having the Lysimachia and the plectranthus, it gives a lot more dimension to the arrangement. And again, I'll add this one to the back corner. And then for just one more splash of color, another great plant for the shade is Terenia. This is a great kind of a ground cover that you can use in your beds outside. Again, I actually have mine out in the sun in places. It's done actually really well. You just can't let it dry out. That's the main thing. You got to keep it hydrated. Again, this is the Summer Wave or the Deep Blue. And to give a little bit more of a trailing feel, I'm going to add this to the front where it'll actually bring the color down over the container so that all the color just isn't up at the top. And now you have this great spillage of color as well as the lime green from the Lysimachia, which in 2 or 3 weeks, it's really going to take a life of its own. Okay. As you see, this Torrenia that spills over not only adds great foliage and green to the front of the container, but look, it just brings all of that beautiful blue color on down. And again, I just think within a few weeks, it's really going to take off. And wow, what a showstopper this is going to be throughout the summer season. So now that I've got one done, I have a great prototype to work from. I have 3 more to go, so let's get started. All right, so I'm starting to work on my second container, but I wanted to make just one more comment. One thing I like to do if you're doing multiples, as we'll be doing 4 of these as we go along the porch, is to make a couple things a little bit different, just so they're not stale. There's a little bit of movement as you go down. So what I'm gonna do in this one is actually add, for the hosta, a different color. This one is more of a lime green instead of a darker green, and I'm gonna be adding that. And with every other pot, it will have that repetition to create a little bit of movement and make it just a little more interesting as you move along the porch. Okay, I got the troughs done, and now I'm ready to start on these containers right here as you go into the den. And if you'll notice these pair of Green Mountain spiral cut boxwoods that we have in these great containers that I've had for a few years that I got from Jackson Pottery in Dallas. I love having a centerpiece that remains the same in some of my containers so that I don't have to switch everything out for every season. So it's nice to have these boxwoods in the center, and what I'm going to be doing is going in and adding some extra color for the springtime, giving these containers a little bit more of a lush feel here on the screen porch. And I was hoping to put some of those beautiful hydrangea in there, but the root ball is just a little too big from the boxwood. So what I'm going to do for my color is actually bring in the Torrenia for the spiller to come out of the front, but I'm going to add different dimensions of green throughout the container to add different height and texture. And one of the new plants that I'm going to bring in is this Japanese beach fern, which I love using over in the shade area. It is a perennial that will come back every year, so what I can do is actually leave it in this container as long as I keep it moist and don't let it dry out, especially through the winter time. It will come back next year. So I'm going to start with these, since this is going to be my largest, most dominant feature, and then I'm going to add all of these other plants as I go around. So what I'm going to do is actually add probably 3 of these ferns around the container. They're going to be the focal point in my new plantings. So I'm going to just place them as a triangle as I go around. And just look at how much more lush this container is already looking. And now for the third and final Japanese fern to the back. I love the different shades of green so that it shows many different layers of the plant. All right, so now probably the most dominant plant next is going to be this beautiful Plectranthus. It's going to give us, again, a little bit of that filler in between the space, but it's also going to spill over as we go. And it's also going to give us a new texture of color since it is variegated and not just a solid green. And just as I did with the fern, this Plectranthus, I'm going to create a little bit of a triangle pattern so that that color difference echoes throughout the entire container. I wanted to add a little bit of a different texture and color, so I chose this spider plant to go in next. It has a little bit more of a pointy, kind of sharp feel to the foliage. And again, being a variegated foliage is going to give a lot of great dimension, and it's a plant that most people see on the inside of a house as a house plant. It is a plant that I love to use each year in the shade containers that I do around the house. All right, now for our color. Again, I was hoping to use the hydrangeas, but the root ball is just a little too big. So I'm going to use the Terrenia again, which is this deep blue. It's going to add a nice kind of trailing habit and hopefully give us that color that I'm missing from the hydrangea this summer. And now for the final plant to go into the puzzle, I am going to add this beautiful Lysimachia. Again, watch how it transforms this container and really brightens up the greenery. So now just take a look at how different this container looks by adding just some different layers of green to make it much more full and lush as we go throughout the season. And one of the things I'm going to do is try to post images on social media so that you can watch it grow. I'll be doing some tips on maybe some trimming if certain things get a little longer. And also when I go in to fertilize, I'll let you know how long I waited in between those fertilizing sessions. And then we'll all see if this Terrenia performs the way I'm hoping it does, as it is now kind of a color echo from the hydrangea being on one side of the porch to add a little bit of blue from the Terrenia on the other. I certainly hope it performs and gives us that color that I'm hoping for throughout the season. So now I'm bringing in all the finishing touches and adding smaller containers throughout the screen porch area, kind of accessorizing it, bringing it to life. You know, when I first started, all of the color was on the outside of the porch, and now what I'm trying to do is bring more color to the inside. Adding hydrangea to some of my favorite containers. This one is especially a favorite. It's from Campo de Fiori, and I just love the motif down front. So the final step will actually be kind of accessorizing and bringing the porch to life. I'll be adding magazines and also a few throws. Sometimes in the evening it gets a little cool, so it's nice to have those to kind of come out and cozy up with and just, again, listen to those thunderstorms roll in and out. So now Bitsy and I are going to finish up a few of these containers. I'll go in and get some of those fun accessories, and then I'll catch up with you at the end to see what you think. All right, so I want to try to wrap it up here. We have a little bit of an afternoon storm getting ready to come in, and I had a little bit of a costume change because I went through and kind of watered everything down so it looked nice and fresh. But as you see, I had to add just a little bit more of the hydrangea out front. I wanted a little bit of that color to introduce what you're going to find once you come in. And as the summertime comes along, I'm going to be adding a few more containers to the outside. I love scented geraniums, and this is usually where I like to pot up different ones. Again, it's a little windy today, so I'm going to wait a couple of weeks once I get a few more plantings done. But I'll probably come back on at a later point and show you those plantings as I put those in. But come along and see how it all turned out. Well, I am just loving the way all of this turned out. These hydrangeas, the color variations that they have in there are just amazing. I really love this deep blue purple, and especially once you get down inside, each little floret has so much change in the colorations. I just absolutely love them. And it was really important to try to find a way to bring some color over to the other side of the porch. And after I couldn't get the hydrangeas themselves inside of these larger containers, I just decided to just pot up a couple of hydrangeas on their own for these small side tables, because I like having little side tables around for drinks, for lemonade or iced tea when you come out to the porch to enjoy. And then also having a few separate seating areas. You know, sometimes it's just a couple of us that are out here enjoying it, but then other times there's a larger group. So it's nice to set up smaller little entertaining areas. That way, if there's only a couple, you don't feel like the space is going to swallow you whole, so to speak. I love having a couple of friends over when I can, but you know, many days after work, it's just Brian and I, or sometimes even just me, that takes a little time to wind down out here. And if I'm by myself, I love to do my next favorite thing, which is read. And right now I'm trying to finish up this new book from Bunny Williams, and just look how much it matches the hydrangea that's out here. So I think I'll probably be digging into that this afternoon as the next Oklahoma storm begins to blow in. Well, I thank you for sticking around and seeing how pretty I think the screen porch turned out this year. And I hope to show you some progress shots as we go throughout the summer so that you can see how they look as that summer heat comes to life. And remember, if you liked this video, be sure to like, subscribe, and follow me, the Preppy Gardener, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.